Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another question of the week. This time asked by Ultra4 Channel. What would happen if an Oldtype attempted to pilot a Newtype mobile suit? Would it just not function? Would it kill them? Would it be too complicated and sensitive for any normal person to use? I just find it interesting. And well, it really depends on the Newtype mobile suit that we're talking about, because the results can be extremely varied, going from nothing at all happening to just straight up killing you, probably by turning your brain into mush. So let's go over some of the examples that we have, and one of the first kind of Newtype mobile suits that we have is the NT1 Alex. And I say kinda here because the Alex isn't really a Newtype machine in the way that we would really see a Newtype machine nowadays. At the time, the Federation knew very little about Newtypes and what their capabilities were. Very much unlike Xeon, who went completely in on Newtypes and like Newtype weaponry with funnels that were controlled by their special brainwaves. For the Federation though, this was all just hocus pocus, and they just had to make do with what they had. So they went for a more conventional approach. They noticed that like Newtypes, or Omro Rays specifically, just had a very high reaction speed. So in response to that, they just made an extremely responsive mobile suit, which then became the NT1 Alex. But again, despite NT literally standing for Newtype, there is nothing special like Newtype about this machine. It is just an extremely reactive mobile suit, which is then also why the test pilot, who was an Oldtype, commented on it that it felt like the Alex was out of control, like probably you touch one of the controls and the thing does like a 180 in less than a second. But at the same time, because there is nothing inherently like Newtype exclusive about this machine, I think that any sufficiently skilled Oldtype should be able to pilot this thing at the same level as a Newtype. Maybe not a like super high level Newtype who has those like super duper reflexes, but if you take a weaker Newtype, that advantage definitely gets much lower, and at that point it really becomes all about skills, I believe. So if you pilot this mobile suit as an Oldtype, you just gotta make sure that you're an ace. And we also have some not quite Newtype stuff going on with Xeon. The Braw Bro was their first combat-ready machine that was outfitted with a system known as the Psychomu system. And this is the system that is required to control remote weaponry like bits, funnels, and fin funnels. But the interesting thing is that that Psychomu system could also be turned off, and the machine could be entirely operated by Oldtype pilots, probably as like some kind of failsafe or as a plan B, just in case, the magic Newtype powers were actually magic and not quite as real as they had hoped. But the catch is, of course, that the Braw Bro could be operated by a single Newtype pilot, whereas it would require 5 Oldtype pilots to match the performance of that single Newtype pilot. And there was only room for 3 pilots, 1 being the pilot and 2 being gunners. But again, for optimal performance, they would have needed 1 gunner per gun, and the thing has 4 guns. So no matter what, to achieve its full performance, the Braw Bro would need to be piloted by a Newtype pilot. But if you and your friends find a Braw Bro, you turn off the Psychomu system, and you can fly the thing. And hey, if you can cram 5 people in there, you might even operate it as well as a Newtype. After the war then, the Federation got their hands on Xeon's Newtype research, and they could finally begin producing actual Newtype machines, including ones that were supposedly dangerous to pilot as an Oldtype. Introducing the Psycho Gundam. More mobile armor than mobile suit, this machine was designed from the ground up to be used by cyber Newtypes, / Newtypes if they could find them. So it wouldn't just be the weapons that were controlled by the Psychoma system, it would be the entire machine that was controlled by the Psychoma system. And according to the catalog specs, the mental strain of doing this was so bad that if you even attempted to do this as an Oldtype, you would just die. So for your own safety, you'd better stay away from this one, and the same probably goes for its descendants, like the Psycho Gundam Mark II and the Queen Mansa. That is, unless you have one of your engineers reprogram the operating system, which is what Ben Wooder did in the Zeta Gundam anime.
How'd it go?
I've reprogrammed the Psycho Gundam's control system.
Excellent.
But you know...
We've been depending too much on cyber Newtypes.
But...
We can't afford not to use the Psycho Gundam.
And after this reprogramming, he was able to control the Psycho Gundam with just like the cockpit controls, and he was able to do that to some success without suffering from the mental anguish of using the Psychoma system. Although he wasn't exactly having the best of times because the thing was still extremely difficult to pilot.
What's wrong? It just stopped on its own. What's happening? Ah! What's this? I'm not moving it. What's happening here? It's out of control.
So by the end of his stint, he came to the logical conclusion that this machine was pretty much impossible to use effectively unless you were using the Psychoma system. Ergo, you had to be a cyber Newtype or a regular Newtype in order to really use this machine. So even if you could use it, you're probably better off not using it anyways. However, not every Newtype mobile suit that is specifically made for Newtypes with the Psychoma system is equally deadly to its pilots, as we could see with the Bound Doc. This Newtype mobile suit was also designed to be operated with the Psychoma system, but it could also be operated manually by a sufficiently skilled Oldtype pilot, like for example, Jared Mesa. But unfortunately for him, this machine could still only achieve peak performance when it was piloted by a Newtype or a cyber Newtype. At the very least, the machine itself isn't going to kill you. You gotta leave the killing to the main character.
Ha ha ha! You won't escape me this time, Camille! Think again! Ah! Listen to me, Camille! If it weren't for you,
Editor Kakarot here with two important notes. The first is that there is some debate on whether or not Jared was a Newtype. He does exhibit some minor Newtype-esque things, but he is never officially listed as a Newtype, which is then why in some games he has Newtype powers, while in others he doesn't. And the second note is that after some further digging, I saw it mentioned that the cockpit of Jared's unit is different. The cockpit in Gatus and Rosamia's machines are similar to the one used in the Psycho Gundam, meaning that they had a Psychoma system, but the cockpit of Jared's unit is a more standard-looking one, meaning that it perhaps didn't even have a Psychoma system to begin with, and that is the reason why it could be piloted by a standard pilot. And if this was the case, then it doesn't really matter if Jared was a Newtype or not, because the important thing was that in universe, they assumed that he wasn't, which is why they then gave him the unit for non-Newtypes. Slightly different then was the Zeta Gundam and its biosensor. Rather than being designed to control the entire mobile suit, the biosensor was a simplified Psychoma system that served as a support system for the mobile suit. Basically, you could control the entire mobile suit, no problem, as an Oldtype pilot. But if you were a Newtype, you could tap into those extra powers that the biosensor provided. And what those powers were extremely varied depending on what the plot required. So they go from increasing the mobile suit's responsiveness to creating a beam barrier.
The Zeta! What's happening? Is this some kind of weapon that I've never seen before?
You'll never understand because you think that war is some kind of game. You can't comprehend the power that's flowing through my body.
What kind of power are you talking about, boy?
But, thanks to the biosensor not activating when no Newtype was detected, you could safely pilot the Zeta Gundam as an Oldtype. Which then also goes for the Delta Plus, because according to the manual of the Master Grade, the Delta Plus also had a biosensor installed in it. And it seems that it was a similar story with the Psycho Frame. Famously used by Newtype machines like the Sazabi and the Nu Gundam, it would also be used in the mass production version of the Nu Gundam. And here we see something interesting. The mass production type was made with the Psycho Frame, but it could be outfitted with two different backpacks. One with fin funnels for Newtype pilots, and one with income units for Oldtype pilots. But that base machine was still the same mass production type Nu Gundam with the Psycho Frame. So now we have a Newtype capable mobile suit that is actually being expressly made to also be used by Oldtypes. But other than being able to use the fin funnels, Newtype pilots would also be able to benefit from enhanced performance thanks to the Psycho Frame being able to tap into their mind and then make the controls more responsive. Still, if you're gonna go for any Newtype machine as an Oldtype, I think this might be the best one. Heck, it might even be safer to operate this thing as an Oldtype, because the Psycho Frame has been known to straight up absorb Newtypes. And talking about killing pilots, the Unicorn Gundam. Just like the Nu Gundam mass production type, it has a Psycho Frame, and we have confirmation that it could be used by Oldtypes as well.
I'm most impressed.
Thank you.
With the machine.
But you probably don't want to pilot this thing for other reasons. The NTD. Not only does this increase the mental strain on the pilot, but it also increases its performance to deadly levels, with an acceleration of up to 20 G. Combine this with the mobile suit basically acting on its own, and something is going to kill you if you try to pilot this thing as a regular pilot. Which is exactly what happened to one of the test pilots in the Bande Dessinée manga. Much later then, we have the Gundam F91 and a system known as the biocomputer. And even if you don't know the system, you do know what it does. It is located in the head, and if it determines that the pilot is a Newtype, it starts running at full throttle. The only problem is that this generates a lot of heat. So in order to deal with this heat, the face opens up to deploy extra cooling systems, and the shoulder-mounted fins also extend, again in order to get rid of that heat. And the important thing here is that, again, we have a limiter. If you're not a Newtype pilot, the machine is limited to what an Oldtype can comfortably handle. But if you are a Newtype, then that biocomputer kicks in and unlocks all of that extra performance that makes use of your Newtype powers. And as an honorable mention then, we also have a manga that deals with this exact question. Although for reasons that will become immediately obvious, it isn't the most canonical thing out there. The manga is called The Ghost of Neo Zeon, and it is about a certain Lieutenant Masada who pilots a Nu Gundam, and he is tasked with hunting down a Yak Doga that crash landed on Earth. And while the Nu Gundam that is used by Masada does have the fin funnels equipped to it, they're only there for decoration because Masada is an Oldtype. He tried to get them to move several times even, but they just didn't budge. At the end though, his Newtype powers do seem to awaken as he does get at least one of the fin funnels to move. So yeah, if you come across a Newtype mobile suit and you try to pilot it, it seems that in most cases you're going to be fine. And even if you try to use the Newtype weaponry, it seems like in most cases, again, you're going to be fine. Heck, you might even find out if you're a Newtype or not. But just to be on the safe side, you might want to check if the Psychoma system has an off switch. Because, you never know. And that's then basically the summary for today's question. We know that a lot of Newtype mobile suits, even the ones that are specifically made for Newtypes, do have some kind of protection in place for Oldtypes, whether it's an off switch or some kind of limiter. Their performance will be limited then, of course, but if you're an ace pilot, you're probably still going to be better off with that Newtype mobile suit as opposed to, the standard mass production mobile suit that is available at that time. And for a lot of them, it even seems that the extra Newtype powers get unlocked the moment you become a Newtype. So it's kind of like a win-win situation, in most cases, to pilot a Newtype mobile suit as an Oldtype. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. But on the flip side, there are those few mobile suits that don't have any protection and will activate the Psychoma system no matter what, unless you rewrite the operating system. But it does make sense for those cases, because units like the Psycho Gundam and the Psycho Gundam Mark II don't just use the Psychoma system for their weapons or as a supplement to their movement. The Psychoma system here is designed to operate the entire thing, period. And the more complex the thing is that you're trying to control with the Psychoma system, the more mental strain it'll give you. So I don't even think that the Psycho Gundam is deadly to just Oldtypes. If you're a weak Newtype, I think this thing is going to kill you just the same. You might survive a minute longer, but maybe just don't use the Psycho Gundam and any of its descendants. So in short, based on the examples that we have, it's going to be one of two extremes. Either it's completely okay, or you're dead. And before we wrap things up here, I quickly want to add a few things to last time's question of the week. First of all, I mixed up Unit 3 with Unit 1 2 times while I was speaking. The corrections are in the pinned comment of that video, and also the information that is on screen is correct. So thank you to the people who pointed that out. And another great comment was from Capt Anon, which I'm assuming stands for Captain Anon. So, I had somewhat of an issue with the first scene in which the Gundam Mark II appears, because here we see Unit 1 doing some really reckless flying and some equally reckless combat maneuvers that could seriously damage the colony, while it is pursuing Quattro Begina. And Quattro even literally points this out.
Using a Vulcan inside his own colony? Doesn't he care about this place?
Which, therefore, doesn't really align with how we would see Emma, who is typically said to be the pilot of Gundam Unit 1. So, because of this, I always figured that it must have been someone else behind the controls of this thing. And we even see the anime kinda confirming this, because after this scene, we see Emma running around without a mobile suit, trying to find a mobile suit. And if she was piloting Unit 1 just before, she probably just would have stayed in Unit 1 and took Unit 1 into battle. But then, as Capt Anon points out, there was actually another test pilot who appeared in the anime, Dava Balo. So I totally agree with him being the most likely candidate for the Episode 1 Unit 1 pilot. And that has been all for this question of the week. As always, let me know what you think down below, which is also where you'll find any potential corrections. And if you have any questions you want me to answer in a future question of the week, you can also leave those down below. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great evening, and I'll see you all next time.